What's happening? Logan Skis here. Thanks for checking this video out. Today I'm going to discuss gamification in project planning. What that means, what it is, and how to do it. So let's go ahead and dive in. No big spiel here. So we're going to start off in the Venture Map. Venture Map is a virtual workspace. It's a template for a business, small to large, that's built out inside of the Miro platform. If you don't know what Miro is or the Venture Map, I've done a number of other videos describing it. Miro is a digital whiteboard, and the Venture Map is this virtual architecture that's structured to house files, assets. It's a project space where you can actually develop things. Think about Google Docs on steroids. But today's video is not so much about Miro or the Venture Map. In fact, it's going to be about gamifying project planning. So first of all, this is not sponsored by this book. There's no affiliate link, but one of the great resources I found in just learning project management as an individual who's not a project manager is this book. On Audible. It's super easy to listen. It provides a lot of great insight. Definitely recommended. For those of you who are not aware, haven't seen my previous videos, my name is Logan Skis. I am a United States Marine veteran, and after 2 deployments to Afghanistan and the infantry, as one is a machine gunner, the other is a rifleman, I learned a number of base skills that have been passed down for generations in the military. One of them is called terrain modeling. I've covered that extensively in other videos. Terrain modeling is something we've used for many, many decades successfully for a reason, and that's because it helps align teams. After growing a personal training business for the better part of a decade, I've found that there's a lot of siloed and fragmented approaches that are rather dull in nature, from service design, business architecture, standard design, collaboration, kind of left me feeling unimpressed and overwhelmed with the amount of just volume of stuff that occurred. In fact, I kind of wanted more of a game board scenario for my businesses where I could see everything in one place and manage it all, similarly to how we would manage a strategic map, a terrain model, and a military operation. So about 2 years ago, I set off building just that for myself, trying to escape the old school paradigm and enter into something a little more fresh. And this is an internal tool my colleague and I have put together. We've had the privilege of deploying it with a number of additional organizations through strategic consulting. However, this is for free. So my belief is that this is a capability. And only by distributing this capability and this methodology to a large community of people who also desire visual collaboration frameworks can it see its full potential. So if at any point in time what my story, the elements of my story you find compelling, or this architecture you find interesting, just go ahead and click the link below in the description, wherever you're watching this at, and just let me know where to send a free version of this to yourself. You can have your very own venture for free, just as a gift. If I can help anyone cut to the front of the line and accelerate their learning process so you don't have to go through the multiple years of a study and synthesis that I did, then that's cool with me. If you have questions, comments, concerns, drop them down below the video. If you find value in what I'm sharing, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's dive into it. How do we gamify project planning? Well, I like to keep things pretty foundational, pretty basic. This is a great image that I've referenced many times with my clients and internally to our team. It's absolutely great because it's an indication of a core truth to human nature. It really draws us back to the origins of humankind thinking, and it's human beings first and foremost are storytellers. They say that we are meaning-making machines. Our brains are designed to make meaning of the world around us, and we share those meanings with other people. And through that collective narrative, that shared myth, we grow culture, we grow collective understanding, and we build our society. So, in the most simple way to distill it down, I love this image, is we're visual storytellers. Human beings are visual creatures. So, a great author you may have heard of is Yuval Noah Harari. He wrote a book called Sapiens, Homo Deus, 21 Lessons for the 21st Century, etc. A great book. This is actually directly off of his website. I'm going to go ahead and just read a little bit of it to you. If you want to read the rest, couldn't recommend it enough on Audible. It's a brilliant read. Same thing in the printed edition. But I'm going to read this because we're starting from scratch. So I love what Harari says here about the origins of business. Here we go. He started talking about the legend of Peugeot. Peugeot began as a small family business in the village of Valentigney, just 300 kilometers from Statel Cave. Today, the company employs about 200,000 people worldwide, most of whom are complete strangers to one another. These strangers cooperate so effectively that in 2008, Peugeot produced more than 1.5 million automobiles, earning revenues of 55 billion euros. In what sense can we say that Peugeot exists? There are many Peugeot vehicles, but these are obviously not the company. Even if every Peugeot vehicle in the world were simultaneously junked and sold for scrap metal, Peugeot would not disappear. It would continue to manufacture new cars and issue its annual report. The company owns factories, machinery, and showrooms, and employs mechanics, accountants, managers, and secretaries. But all these together do not comprise Peugeot. A disaster might kill every single one of Peugeot's employees and go on to destroy all of its assembly lines and executive offices. Even then, the company could borrow money, hire new employees, and build new factories and buy new machinery. Peugeot has managers and stockholders, but neither do they constitute the company. All the managers could be dismissed and all its shares sold, but the company itself would remain intact. Peugeot belongs to a particular genre of legal fictions called limited liability companies. The idea behind such companies is among humanity's most ingenious invention. This is a brilliant, brilliant book. Couldn't recommend it enough. It's a shared myth, as he likes to say. Now, this type of shared myth is kind of like a fractal. If you've ever seen something like this before, you can zoom into any piece of it. Within that piece is the whole piece, and we can maybe do another video on fractals. If you're interested in that, let me know. But how does one map out one of these things? Because if the business isn't the employees, the products, the stakeholders, the offices, the accounts, if it's none of those things, yet it encompasses all of those things, it is a construct of the human imagination. And it is more than just a legal entity, because even all the papers could be destroyed, but it still could exist. So this fictitious construct of the human imagination is kind of like a fractal in nature. In the book, it goes on to describe the material reality and the imagined reality. And a business, first and foremost, exists in an imagined reality. It doesn't exist in the same place where there's rivers and rocks and tigers, as he says. Although there are material components, there is that abstract, ethereal, imaginative quality of a business. So as a good Marine infantry squad leader, I have to ask myself, well, if we're going to conduct a high stakes operation, right, there's a pretty substantial chance of failure in any project due to team dysfunction and just due to the overwhelming odds. So it just like in the Marine Corps, we would want to mitigate against risk where lives are on the line, where there's high stakes. In business, there's lives may not be on the line, but certainly livelihood is on the line. So that's about as serious as it gets, short of flying shrapnel and hot lead. So first of all, we ask ourselves, let's map out the operation. How does one map out a fractal, a construct of human imagination? And one of the things I like to look to is real-time strategy games for inspiration, because it definitely isn't going to happen in something like this, a format that's flat and analog. We're going to need something a little more maneuverable. We're going to need something a little more immersive. Now, there's a great company called Spatial.io. No affiliation to them, just super impressed with what they're doing, right? They're blending together augmented reality and physical reality workspaces. And I think about this work in Miro as a precursor to this sort of experience. This is advanced. You see this guy's got a Microsoft HoloLens on here, and he sees a virtual avatar next to him. He's got stuff on his computer screen, but his colleague is pulling up Google Docs, coding, calendars, projecting that holographically for them to see in a shared sort of metaverse style collaborative workspace. And that's cool. That's pretty cool. But it's still early days, right? If you're a kid of the 90s like I am, maybe you actually ended up going to Blockbuster and renting a VHS And I remember how cool that was when it was a thing. It was pretty sweet. And if you're above my generation or before my generation, there's even stuff that came up before this, Walkmans, all that good stuff. That was cool during the time. But now we look back at this as a novelty at best. Anything and everything can be streamed to all of our devices. Any in terms of media, we don't have to go hope that there's a VHS in the new release, a stack, right? In the same way, I think this kind of technology, spatial and the like, is in a very early stage, just like Blockbuster was early stage, and it's inlaying the crucial foundation for what's to come in terms of Blockbuster doing media distribution. This is virtual collaboration in a metaverse or in a converged physical digital collaborative workspace where businesses come to life. So these businesses, these shared constructs of human imagination, only occur when there's awareness and time dedicated to them. So that a business can only really come to life when there's a shared interest, shared awareness, focused energy into that space. So the venture map is a way to harness focus of individuals and teammates alike. Now, where does the game mode come in? And where does the project planning come in? That's the title of the video, and that's what we're going to discuss. So now that we're contextualized, we can just look at the very beginning of the order of operations for an incubation framework. How do we get to deploying our website, our product, our store, etc.? Well, we like to start with a vision. We like to define the vision. Instead of keeping it tribal or implicit, we like to get it out on the wall so we can all see it and everyone can contribute to ensuring that they're aligned with it. The very first thing we believe a disciplined visionary does is a project plan. So I've talked about this briefly in other videos. One of the core elements of a project plan is a scope statement. So we can get into how to do a scope statement. These are some super basics. I just have in here, I put some post-it notes just to demonstrate. It doesn't have to be very fancy. You don't have to have an MBA. You don't even need to be formally trained. You don't need to read a ton of books. You can use it just like a game board. You can approach board games and computer games alike without any sort of degree. Kids do it all the way up to seniors. So it's the same thing here. If you have the right templates, which we can help you with, you just come through and answer the right questions at the right times. And when it's done, right, it's pretty straightforward. You have a reward, a micro celebration, and you move on to the next thing. For example, you can define your project deliverables, mapping out what is going to be done, when it's going to be done, and you can have additional stuff too. This is kind of prestige or expert mode, so we don't necessarily have to do it in the short term. This is more of a long-term asset in terms of visually defining what the deliverables will look like. And then for my consultants, my agency owners out there, we can of course turn that into proposals to deliver and client engagements. Again, that's another level 5 prestige asset. Once you kind of have those basics down, right? A scope statement, your project deliverables, your work breakdown structure, and your Gantt chart, or your timeline. This is just 3 basic pages, 3 basic templates here that are best practice in the project planning community. And if you're a project planner out there watching and you have complementary insight or even a different kind of divergent perspective, I would love to hear it. And in fact, I'd love to do some collaborative discussion and exploration on best practice and on gamifying project management and all of that. So in terms of boiling it down to the bare necessities, these 3 elements are very important. It's basically a big picture of what the goals are. What are we going to do? What are we not going to do? What's going to limit us from doing it in the first place? Who is going to be doing it? What threshold of quality is required to accept the outcomes? And then who are we going to be keeping in the loop along the way? Very basics. Then getting more detailed, but this is exactly what needs to be done in order, and this is when it's going to be done by. If you have those things, then you basically move on to what Simon Sinek talks about with team culture, right? Starting with why, the purpose. You can do a mission statement, vision. You can talk about your team, method, solution. We can get into all of that in the next video. But for today, gamifying your project planning can be as easy as getting a free venture map using the link below. It's pretty straightforward. And I'll even connect with you. Can book me for an hour for free on Zoom. I'll even come through an onboarding session, help you get your own venture map template set up. I'll give you a blank version of this, And from there, you've got some of the core elements to gamify project planning. Just get your scope statement in place, your work breakdown structure, and your Gantt chart. There's a million and one deliverables that you can go through in Miro. There's an entire Miro verse that third parties are uploading stuff to. And of course, at venturemap.io, we've got all sorts of templates that can help you simulate and design every single aspect of your entire business, to include automations, team training, project planning, marketing, all of that good stuff. We can help you bake in Google Studio and ad tracking. So that being said, that's all the time I've got for today. If you liked this video, you got any value from it, drop a thought, subscribe to see further content like this. And if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, hit that link in the description, grab your very own venture map in Miro, book an onboarding session so I can help you get started and condense your learning curve. So thanks for joining me. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.